Some love stories are loud. They arrive with announcements, flashing cameras, and endless applause. Others are quiet. They live between closed doors, unanswered calls, and nights that never make the news. This is a story about the second kind. In a city that never sleeps, two people learned how to disappear. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this story to keep the light burning for truth and compassion. Wang was used to being seen. Every step he took was measured, recorded, and discussed. Every smile was analyzed. Every silence became a headline. Fame had taught him how to perform even when he was exhausted. Shen had learned a different lesson. She had learned how to remain gentle in a world that demanded constant strength. She smiled softly, spoke carefully, and carried herself in a way that made people feel close to her, even when they knew nothing about her at all. When their paths crossed again after years of growing separately, there were no dramatic confessions. No promises made under bright lights. There was only familiarity. And familiarity, when mixed with loneliness, can become dangerous. Their relationship did not begin with love. It began with understanding. Understanding of pressure. Understanding of exhaustion. Understanding of how heavy fame can feel when it follows you home. They met when schedules allowed. They talked when the world went quiet. They avoided places where memories could be photographed. They never held hands in public. They never looked at each other for too long when others were present. Love grew anyway. Slowly. Carefully. Like something that knew it could be destroyed if it moved too fast. The truth arrived quietly. No dramatic music. No sudden storm outside the window. Just a small piece of plastic in Shen's hand and a realization that made her sit down on the bathroom floor. When she told Dylan, his first reaction was silence. Not shock. Not anger. Silence. Because silence is what you give a moment that changes your life forever. After a long time, he spoke. "We'll protect this," he said. "No matter what it costs." They knew exactly what it would cost. Careers. Freedom. Public trust. Everything they had built. They chose it anyway. From that moment on, every day became an act. Loose clothing. Strategic angles. Carefully planned schedules. Separate cars. Different entrances. Shen disappeared from public view more often than usual. Dylan declined interviews without explanation. Speculation appeared online, as it always does. But speculation is never enough without proof. And they made sure there was none. At night, when the world finally released them, they talked about the future in whispers. They did not speak about fear. Fear already lived with them. The child was born on an ordinary day. No reporters waiting outside.
No congratulate banners. No trending hashtags.
Just a small cry that filled the room and changed everything. Dylan held the baby with shaking hands. Shen watched him and realized something important. For the first time, fame meant nothing to him. They did not announce the birth. They did not share photos. They did not give the world a chance to decide whether this life was acceptable. They chose privacy over permission. Returning to the public eye was harder than disappearing. Dylan stepped back into filming with a smile that convinced everyone he was the same. Shen returned to work with a calm that hid sleepless nights and constant worry. They lived two lives. One belonged to the public. The other belonged to their child. At home, they were not celebrities. They were parents learning how to survive on little sleep and endless love. Sometimes, Dylan would watch Shen rock the baby to sleep and wonder how something so powerful could remain completely unseen by the world. Protecting a secret has consequences. Opportunities were delayed. Roles were declined. Endorsements quietly disappeared. They never complained. Every sacrifice felt smaller than the risk of exposure. There were moments of doubt. Moments when Shen wondered if she had asked Dylan to give up too much. Moments when Dylan wondered if the truth would one day hurt their child. But every doubt faded when they heard laughter fill their home. It nearly ended with a photograph. A blurry image. A familiar figure. A stroller in the distance. The internet reacted quickly. Fans argued. Theories formed. Then something else happened. The world moved on. Another scandal replaced it. Another story demanded attention. That night, Dylan and Shinyu sat together in silence, holding hands, realizing how fragile their safety truly was, and how strong they had become. The child grew without knowing fame.
No cameras. No crowds. No expectations.
Just bedtime stories, shared meals, and parents who showed up every day. Dylan learned patience. Shinyu learned a deeper courage. They promised each other one thing. When the time came, they would tell the truth, not out of pressure, but out of love. For now, the world sees what it wants to see. Two successful actors. Separate lives. Separate paths. What it does not see is the quiet home where laughter echoes without witnesses. One day, the story may be told. But until then, their love remains what it has always been.
Private.
Protected. And real. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share the story to keep the light burning for truth and compassion. Time does not expose secrets the way people do. It softens them. Years passed quietly. The child grew taller, learned to read faces, learned which doors led to safety and which questions were better left unasked. Dylan aged differently after becoming a father. His fame remained bright, but his eyes held something deeper now. Something steady. Shinyu became calmer, stronger. The kind of strength that comes from surviving without being seen. They never argued about hiding. They argued only about ordinary things. Who forgot to buy groceries? Who worked too late? Who loved the child more, even though both knew the answer was the same? Children ask questions before they understand consequences. One evening, as rain pressed softly against the windows, the child looked up and asked, "Why do people stare at you?" Shinyu froze. Dylan knelt down and smiled gently. "Because they think they know me," he said. "But they don't." The child nodded, accepting the answer the way children accept mysteries when love feels secure. That night, after bedtime, Shinyu cried quietly, not from fear, from knowing that one day, the truth would demand more than gentle answers. There were moments when revealing everything felt tempting. A careless reporter, a persistent rumor, a headline that came too close to the truth. Dylan and Shinyu would sit together, phones face down, discussing the same question again and again. If we tell them, what happens to our child? They never worried about themselves. They worried about the world's hunger for judgment. So they waited. Waiting became their quiet discipline. Work took Dylan overseas for long periods. Shinyu stayed behind, holding the family together with routine and patience. They learned how to love through absence. Voice messages sent at dawn. Video calls whispered in dark hotel rooms. Promises repeated until they felt permanent.
Distance did not weaken them.
It reminded them why they had chosen this life. The industry changed. New stars rose. Old scandals faded. The public learned how quickly admiration could turn into indifference. This gave them hope. Maybe one day, truth would not be a disaster. Maybe the world would be ready to hear a story that was not dramatic, not perfect, not designed for entertainment. Just human. Understanding arrived sooner than expected. The child came home one afternoon quieter than usual. "Someone at school said you're famous," the child said. Dylan and Shinyu exchanged a look that said everything words could not. "Yes," Shinyu answered. "But that's not the most important thing about us." The child thought for a long moment. "You're my parents," the child said. "That's enough." That night, Dylan held Shinyu and whispered, "We did something right." The idea of revealing the truth returned, stronger now. Not as fear, as responsibility. They imagined headlines, speculation, opinions from people who had never lived their lives. They imagined their child reading comments years later. And still, they hesitated. Because once truth is released, it can never be protected again. They decided not to rush. If they told the world, it would be on their own terms. Not during a scandal. Not during a comeback. Not as damage control. But as a story of love that survived silence. Until then, they continued living. Cooking dinner. Attending school events quietly. Laughing at small things that fame could never buy. Their love no longer felt fragile. It felt proven. Proven by years of sacrifice. Proven by ordinary mornings. proven by a child who felt safe. They had nothing left to prove to the world. Some stories are never meant to be shouted. Some truths are strongest when they grow quietly. For now, Dylan Wang and Shen remain what the world believes them to be. Actors. Public figures. Separate lives. But behind closed doors, there's something else entirely. Two people who chose love without applause. A family built without permission. A future protected by silence. And when the time is right, the world may finally listen. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share this story to keep the light burning for truth and compassion.